Hi there, I'm Anna Marie de la Vega. Thank you for joining us for today's focus. It's David Wood. He's back. He's the licensed therapist and regional director of Family Care Center, the largest outpatient behavioral health provider in Tennessee. Now, last time you were here, thank you for coming back, first
You're
of all.
very welcome. Thank you for having me again.
We talked about kind of different mental health needs for the community. For women, for example, because their mental health needs can be different and wrapped around the role of caregiver.
Absolutely.
A lot more than possibly men's. Today, we're going to drill in a little bit deeper and talk about different mental health needs for stages and phases in our lives.
Absolutely.
In everybody's lives. So what did you call it? The psychosocial stages of development.
Yes. Yeah. The psychosocial stages of development were a theory of human development developed by a psychologist, Erik Erikson, a while back. And these are still underlying philosophies and theories that predicate our understanding of human development and influence our understanding of whether it's early childhood into young adulthood, into middle adulthood, and later stages of life. This theory of development is a very strong and influential underlying philosophy that really influences our understanding of how humans develop, what their focuses are,
Makes sense.
what motivates them through these different seasons of life.
That makes sense because a baby's not thinking about retirement.
Correct.
You know, things like that. So we have different issues on our plate. Our brains are working in different ways.
Yes.
And growing and developing.
Yes.
And we're looking at a whole set of different circumstances.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Based on what we can even comprehend, based on how much emotional intelligence we have developed, how much awareness we have to our environment and those around us. You know, an infant is not worried about self-actualization and trying to develop their sense of self and their purpose in life.
No.
They're taking in information, they're absorbing everything around them like a sponge, and they're striving to develop a sense of security or a sense of safety.
Yeah. Security and safety. What do you mean like safety? Like they didn't drop me, or every time this person picks me up, they might...
Exactly. That's exactly right. So infants often in these psychosocial stages of development, we call the infancy stage, it's the trust versus mistrust stage. So they're developing a sense of trust that I'm safe, or if I have needs and I vocalize those, usually through crying, then, oh, look, this person, mom, shows up and meets that need. They also begin to develop that if I'm just crying because I don't want to go to sleep, but all my needs have been taken care of, mom doesn't come just because I'm crying. She comes because I have an actual need.
Whoa.
And she addresses that need. And so that actually develops a stronger sense of security and a sense of provision and safety than if somebody comes just because I cry. If there's an actual need, she shows up, my needs are taken care of.
Whoa.
But they don't come running just because I cry. That can actually cultivate that can translate into unhealthy behaviors if everybody comes just because I'm crying.
Whoa. That's pretty deep. Because when we start off, we're in the womb and we don't have any needs.
There's no awareness, of
needs. It's just life is just everything is met. All your needs are met, and then you have to start developing the fact that I need to express my needs, and I can express my needs.
Yeah,
I think that's very eye opening for me because I kind of thought I know it's important for infants to have a certain social environment, but it also kind of felt like it's like, well, oh, look, there's a hand. And then like, I'm going to put it in my mouth. And they're just still discovering everything.
Yeah, just everything. Even the theory of object permanence, right? Which is why peekaboo is so fun for little children, right?
Whoa.
Because when you fall out of their line of sight and then pop back into it, it's like you're new for the first time, right?
Oh my God.
And so as they develop object permanence, it's this idea of once you're out of line of sight, you still exist.
Okay, so we start with infants. That was way more fascinating than I even imagined that would be. Okay, in the next stage of our psychosocial development and the mental health things that might arise would be what?
Yeah, it would be early childhood into preschool years and then like school age, right? So early childhood is a little bit more of the autonomy, and they can start functioning in this realm of like shame or guilt, or a little bit more emotional development, right? These are like potty training years. Maybe they aren't held as much and there's a little bit more freedom for them to kind of play and engage. You know, you take them to the playground and they meet peers and they begin developing relationships with other kiddos. In my study and in my line of work, what I have found to be one of the most important areas to focus on in this stage of development is helping a child develop courage. So if a parent is fearful for the safety of their child, they may limit that child running out to the playground to play.
Yes.
And, you know, of course, we want to keep an eye on our children and we want to do that. But we also want them to learn to not be afraid.
Yeah.
We want them to have courage. We want them to be able to fall down. You know, they fall down, they skin their knee, and they look to us as the parent. How big of a deal is this? How big should my reaction be? And if we come running and we're anticipating a big emotional response, the small child will respond that way.
They learn, oh, that's a horrible thing.
It's a horrible thing that just happened to me. Yeah.
Oh.
But if we say, hey, you're okay, we dust that off, get up, keep playing. Isn't this you're having fun, right? This is great. And you're okay. Like you're a tough kiddo. That helps instill a sense of courage, a little bit more sense of resiliency.
Yeah.
And that is so important in that younger childhood and into like school age development, because that can translate into kids taking a little bit more risk in a healthy way. I'm going to approach some of my new classmates and introduce myself and just start to develop relationship as opposed to pulling back and isolating or being afraid.
And if it doesn't work out as you thought it might, it doesn't just devastate you because you've never had that happen before.
Absolutely. And helping them understand that kind of rejection or maybe a miss is inevitable.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because it'll happen again.
That's okay.
It'll happen again. And that's the resiliency factor.
And this is stuff. The reason we're talking about this, if you're just joining us, I'm Anna Marie, and this is Focus. We're talking with David Wood, licensed therapist and regional director of Family Care Center, the largest outpatient behavioral health provider in Tennessee. And we're talking about the psychosocial stages of development, things that affect different ages, different stages of life. And the reason it's so important in young childhood is because you can see people who've had that part kind of botched by a parent who was unable for some reason to give them that kind of care and support.
Yeah. They maybe they grew up in an environment that just couldn't facilitate that kind of healthy development. And some of us as parents, maybe we didn't have that healthy environment. And so we don't know how to help facilitate that or help contribute to an environment to raise our children in that healthy space.
Yeah.
And so those adverse childhood events can affect us through the span of our entire life.
Yeah.
And sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be a one-time catastrophic traumatic experience. It can be just this missed opportunity for developing a healthy, emotional, and autonomous state in the individual child.
Okay, so then say we've survived that, and then we move into which stage of life?
Later school years and adolescence. And adolescence, it can be a very volatile, very difficult. I often nowadays find myself having an increased level of sympathy and empathy for school-age kiddos nowadays, for middle school and high school-age children and young adults, because I feel like the world is a much more complicated place nowadays than it was for us when we were kids.
Yeah.
The access to information, the instant access to information through cell phones and technology and social media has just added layers and layers of complexity onto their childhood and young adult and developmental experiences.
Wow.
And so the category of that adolescent age, we call it identity versus role confusion. These young adults, these adolescents are developing a much stronger sense of identity, and often in and through their relationships with their peers. So here's where you'll see a lot of middle schoolers or high schoolers kind of pulling away a little more from their parents. They're needing to develop a sense of autonomy, a deeper sense of self-integrity, and they're looking to connect more with their peers, more so than those in their immediate family.
Oh.
They're looking for more of a place of belonging and a sense of identity through those relationships with their peers.
I get that. I was a singer. Mm-hmm. And so I gravitated toward a couple of girls specifically. We sang together and we would sing at assemblies and things like
Absolutely.
that. That
Yeah.
was my little tribe. But then
Yeah.
you had people who felt like rebels and they were
Yes.
back there smoking.
Cliques.
Yes.
Cliques, exactly. This is why we see cliques, the old homage of, cliques or tribes. You use the word tribes. Kiddos, young adults, high school, middle school age, they're looking for connection. They're looking for identity, and they can group up around certain things. There's the jocks, there's the nerds, there's the whoever's, right? And of course, every single one of those individual adolescents, they can cross between groups. You can have a jock, somebody who excels in athletics, but they're also very intelligent and they do very well in school, but they also love heavy metal and black metal. And, you can also have the kids who maybe they dabble in illicit substances or things that they shouldn't be doing, and they party and they find a big sense of social belonging through that, but they also really enjoy their education and strive really well in school and are very intelligent. So you can see those outliers, but oftentimes in big ways, you can see kids will group themselves based on their interests or what they excel at. And they're looking for that sense of belonging.
What happens to that group that we were drawn to? There were some groups in school who were popular because of their looks.
Sure. Yeah.
What happens to that group feeling as we get older? Does that kind of stick, or do we kind of outgrow that a little bit, or?
I suppose it would depend on the individual, how they've grown, what kind of life experiences they've had, if they've, depending on how much they've matured kind of beyond that.
Right.
Because like these middle school, high school aged adolescents, they're kind of superficially identifying themselves in these ways, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a terribly meaningful label.
Yes.
Right? Like, well, I'm very artistic, so I hang out with other artists.
Yeah.
Or I love drama and theater, so I'm in the drama club and I spend time with the drama club kids. And like, that's an activity, that's a hobby.
Yeah.
That's not who you are as a person. And as an adult, we know that, we learn that, that we are very complex, we're very multifaceted. And how we spend our time and the interests we have don't define the totality of who we are as a person.
Yeah.
And so as they grow, most folks really grow out of that.
Yeah.
Now, there are some who may have had some very successful, very enjoyable experiences in high school or through college. And maybe it was based on their physical attraction or something that was maybe temporary. And as they start to lose that, as they get older, they can lose those senses of identity and struggle for that sense of belonging because it was established in something temporary.
Oh, that's good.
There's jokes, I think about, this is so silly, but I think about Uncle Rico from that silly movie, Napoleon Dynamite. Did you ever see that movie?
A long time ago.
Long time ago, right? Well, he's the uncle who was the star quarterback. And he is stuck in the past. He feels like he peaked in high school playing football.
Oh.
And the film's great. And, he kind of grows out. It grows beyond it a little bit. They kind of give a little wink to that. But that's a concept that resonates and we think is funny because we all have met somebody where maybe that's a little bit true.
Right.
Where they feel like they had peaked or that was their season of meaningful purpose. That's in the past now. And now they don't know who they are. And so they're kind of stuck in the past.
Whoa.
And it is really sad. It's really unfortunate that they feel that way because it's like, well, the skill sets and the abilities that made you successful back then, you still have those. You just don't have the same outlet because you're not 17 and in high school anymore. But you have people around you that you can influence. You have opportunities ahead of you that you can strive for. You just need to translate those skill sets into your current setting, time, place, environment.
Okay.
Yeah. And so sometimes that means grieving and kind of letting go of the past. It was a wonderful season of life, but it's behind us.
How do you grieve and let go of the past you?
Grieving's tough because there's no way around it. It's
really?
It is. You can't cut through it. You can't get around it.
You just have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I often tell my clients and patients is this is a very icky analogy, but grief is like a crap sandwich, and you have to eat the whole thing.
No.
If you could cut that out if you want.
No, we're going to.
But
maybe it's kind of like.
You just have to, because if you don't, it lingers. It stays.
Like if you don't have the ceremony after someone passes away.
Yeah.
You don't have a chance to let that out.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And we talked about that in our last discussion too, about if somebody around you is not modeling grief, they're trying to keep it together. Mm-hmm. They're trying to take care of all the tangible needs of like a funeral or a service or a ceremony, or the needs of the family who maybe just lost a loved one. Everybody around that person is witnessing them not grieving.
Yeah.
And they're getting the idea that that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to keep it together, as opposed to expressing my emotions, letting myself go through those stages of grief, feeling angry about this loss, bargaining with myself. What if I had done more? Or I wish I would have said this to them when they were alive.
Right.
Being sad, crying, all those stages of grief before you can get to a place of acceptance and closure about it. You have to go through those stages and allow yourself to do that. And understanding that playing those hypothetical what if games in your mind of what if I would have said this, or what if I would have intervened, or I wish I would have said this to the person before I lost the opportunity to and they passed. It's actually healthy to allow your mind to go through that.
Really?
It is. It is. That's part of the grieving process. It's very uncomfortable, but if you're uncomfortable in your season of grieving, you're doing it right.
But if you don't grieve and you stay uncomfortable forever because you didn't actually...
If you're stuffing those feelings down and you're not letting yourself go through it, you're going to stay stuck. You can stay stuck.
This man is so brilliant. We're so fortunate to have him with us. David Wood, licensed therapist and regional director of Family Care Center, the largest outpatient mental health provider in Tennessee. We're talking about the psychosocial stages of development, the ages and stages of life in which we have different mental health issues and different mental health needs. Yeah.
And you had actually asked this great question about what can happen with those folks when maybe their sense of identity or their sense of belonging is established in something like superficial, like maybe their looks or something like in high school. Well, and then we talked about the transition or kind of growth beyond that. Well, in young adulthood, when folks are in college or coming out of college, they're looking to start families, they're beginning careers. This is a season where that previous established sense of courage and resiliency is so important. Because the stage of young adulthood is one that's kind of identified by either intimacy or isolation.
Oh.
And so they're stepping out and looking for cultivating more special, deeper relationships. And this is often where folks find lifelong partnerships through marriage or unions. And it takes a lot of courage to do that successfully. And to be afraid to put yourself out there like that can translate into isolation.
Just your professional opinion, does it seem like more people are headed toward isolation than...
I think so. It seems to be that way. We do see we see social media usage just always ever increasing. We also see like pornography addictions and usage just skyrocketing. Substance use, we saw that a lot through 2020 and these following years.
Yeah.
We see a big sense of increased social isolation. And I think people are, more so than ever, they're really, really needing human connection.
I noticed that I have a friend who's younger and gets so caught up in the likes and the interaction on social media that it seems like it's a replacement for real life friends. We're tight, we're close, we're this, and so, and then such, and then they unfriended me or unfollowed me, and she's all upset about it.
Yeah.
Because it feels like that's real, because that's the realest thing.
It's and I sometimes struggle because I'm old enough to, my childhood experiences were on a bike and knocking on the neighbors' doors looking for kids to play with. I got all the way through high school before I had a cell phone. I have to remind myself that my childhood and developmental experiences were different than what they are experiencing now.
Yeah.
They are living their social lives through these devices, through social media. It is very, very real to them.
So don't go get a life, because that is.
It really is. So, and if I can mention a film that I saw a while back that actually really helped change my own perspective on this, it's called Childhood 2.0. And it talks about, from a kiddo's perspective, interviewing a lot of kids, and they're sharing these stories and these perspectives about this. You know, if they're in a group chat, you know, a group of girls, a group of guys are in a group chat, and one of them gets kicked out, or they go start another group chat without that one individual person, that's, to them, that is the exact same as them being like essentially ostracized from their friend group.
Yeah.
And it is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And they are, And so, you know, for those of us who are a little older, we may look at that and go, well, that's not real anyways. It's just social media, you know, like go outside, go hang out with friends person to person, you know, in proximity to one another, which they do that. But all of that is facilitated through the technology, through the cell phone or through the social media or texting apps and things. So to be cut out of that, or to be rumors spread about you or whatever it could be, it really is devastating to them. It really is.
Does it kind of go back to where we have to have that tribe, and if we feel like we're cut out, we might die?
Yeah. That's my place of belonging. That's who I am. So if I don't fit in with that group anymore, and I don't know who I am outside of that, where do I belong?
Whoa.
Where do I belong? And there would be a sense, a lost sense of security there, right? I mean, as humans, we group up, we live together, we build cities and live together. And, you know, I live out in the sticks, and that's because I like a little peace and quiet, but I live and work and spend much of my time in urban populated areas. You know, we do that because it brings a sense of security, a sense of provision. We're not doing this thing life alone.
And we're not isolated, and the lion might get us.
Exactly.
Sort of.
Yeah. And there's absolutely a biological element to that goes way, way back in the human development.
So what do we do to help younger people? What do you do to help younger people who are dealing with the isolation, younger and young adults dealing with possible isolation? And what else did you say is on the rise? The
addiction, substance abuse. These are all maladaptive coping strategies to try to meet that need for connection, or to mask or try to cover up the discomfort that they may be feeling because they're lacking that connection, right? So
maladaptive meaning I'm going to adapt to do this, but it's not a good
it's not an actual fix. It's a Band-Aid, but it can also lead to bigger problems. Right?
So at Family Care Center, David Wood is a licensed therapist and the regional director of Family Care Center. Where would you start?
The overall antidote to that would be validation. It would be speaking approval to them, letting them know that, hey, just as a person, you have value, you have worth to me in my eyes, and genuinely to the people around you. And there are people in your life that you may not really realize it yet, but you don't have to go out and look for them. There are people in your life who desire a deeper connection with you, and they need a deeper connection as well. And being vulnerable, this is again where that sense of courage comes in. It requires this pathway of vulnerability, of authentic, transparent vulnerability to let someone in to that deeper level. You know,
or to even show that you have the need for that.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, our sense of confidence in our identity is directly congruent to the level of vulnerability and authenticity that we're willing to show other people.
Okay, say that again.
So our sense of acceptance and confidence in our identity is directly congruent to the level of vulnerability that we are willing to engage in. Yeah, for instance, if I'm looking to develop this relationship with Anne Marie and I share things about myself.
Yes.
And you say, that's cool. I've had some of those experiences too. I've made some mistakes like that as well, right? I feel like you're accepting me, warts and all. But if I've got this one thing that I'm so embarrassed about that I'm not going to share with you.
Yes.
And you don't know about that, I'm going to have bad days where I have feelings of doubt. And I'm going to wonder to myself, well, you know, Anne Marie says she loves me, but she doesn't know that thing about me. And I bet if she did, she would reject me.
Oh, wow.
Like how could she approve of me if she knew that about me? So I'm going to keep that thing in. I'm going to hide that. And if you remember last time we talked, I also said, you can't hide and heal at the same time.
Yes.
Well, I'm not even giving you the opportunity to truly accept me, even with that other thing. In my life, I have most of the time I have found that when I share that thing, people go, "Oh, that's amazing. I just went through that in this previous season of my life," or "I'm going through that right now," or "Oh my gosh, I've made the same mistake." Or even if they haven't been through it specifically themselves, they go, "I'm so impressed that you were confident and courageous to share that with me. Like, thank you for trusting me with that information about you." It never has translated into "Oh my gosh, shame on you. Like, don't talk to me anymore."
Yeah.
It brings us closer together, and they feel connected through my attempt at developing rapport and being vulnerable.
And you being vulnerable.
Yeah, and my vulnerability, my self-disclosure actually helped them feel closer to me as well. And then I get that opportunity to feel accepted by them on a deeper level because I was more transparent.
Okay. We're kind of running out of time, but we still have a couple of stages in life to look at. Now, you mentioned something about looking back and doing the what ifs and not grieving and not moving past and thinking the best is behind you. So we're going to talk about adulthood.
Yeah.
And
Later adulthood.
On our next conversation.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, is there anything before we wrap this up today? David Wood, the licensed therapist and regional director of Family Care Center, that's the largest outpatient mental health provider in Tennessee. Anything you want to add as we wrap up today's program?
Sure. I just want to again say thank you for allowing me to be here and to share and discuss these topics. These are so passionate for me. I've dedicated my life, my education to these, but also we're in a season right now of very, very high need. So Tennessee actually currently ranks 43rd in the United States in access to mental health care services. Whoa. So that's 43rd position out of 50. Also, it's estimated that right around 1 million people in Middle Tennessee are currently diagnosed with a mental health disorder or possibly undiagnosed.
Oh, gosh.
And so access to care and seeking out support is more important than ever.
Yeah.
We're growing a lot. Davidson, Williamson, Rutherford counties are booming.
Yeah.
And the demand is only increasing. And so I really appreciate the opportunity just to encourage people that if you're struggling with something, and it may not even be necessarily quantifiable as a mental health diagnosis or disorder. It may just be life hurts and you're struggling. You're not alone. Do not isolate. Reach out to those around you. You can always reach out to Family Care Center and other organizations. There's wonderful other behavioral health organizations around in Middle Tennessee as well. But don't hide. Don't hide.
If they reach out to Family Care Center and that's not the right fit for them for some reason, would you be able to help kind of point them in the right direction?
Absolutely. We do that a lot. We partner with every agency, every mental health agency, private practice or private practitioner, hospital groups, pediatric and primary care facilities all around the state to develop these partnerships and these pathways to help people get where they need to be. Yeah. And that's not always with Family Care Center. I've been a therapist for quite a long time, but I'm not the right therapist for everybody. But I know a lot of really great therapists.
Yeah.
And so it's always enjoyable to get to meet somebody, connect with them, and have a real honest conversation of, I think you're dealing with something that's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse or my scope. Or we just don't seem like we jive real well. But I've got this peer who I think you're going to love.
Yeah.
And I think you'll connect with better. And we know this to be true, that the most paramount element of having a successful outcome in therapy is the rapport and the relationship established between the client and the provider.
Whoa.
And without that, it's really hard to get anywhere. But that's in that professional realm. And before you would even seek out professional help, I would encourage people, make sure that you're striving to connect with those around you, check in on your loved ones. And if you're struggling with something that you don't know how to move beyond, absolutely reach out for help.
Reach out for help. David Wood, licensed therapist and regional director of Family Care Center, the largest outpatient behavioral mental health provider in Tennessee. And the reason we're having him is because you need to know that you are not alone.
Absolutely.
We'll put some links on the Focus Facebook page. Make sure you join us again next time. I'm Anna Marie, and this is Focus.